Welcome back to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. Today's guest is Alfonso Gomez, co-founder of CrossMint, former Google and WhatsApp product manager, and the guy who literally helped invent the I am not a robot CAPTCHA. In this conversation, Alfonso takes us from building time machines at Google, I gotta have more details on this, to building the rails for a programmable economy. We'll unpack why he thinks AI agents will soon be financial actors, how micropayments could reinvent the internet, and why stablecoins are doubling every few months. If you're a founder curious about embedding finance into your product, preparing for the rise of agentic AI, or just wondering what it will mean when bots start paying bots, this episode is for you. Big ideas, big numbers, and a wild ride into the future of money and trust. Let's go. But first, some business. The Founder Challenge is brought to you by Kitcaster. You know podcast guesting works. There's no faster way to build trust and authority with your ideal audience. But finding the right shows, pitching the hosts, and managing the logistics, this is a full-time job. At Kitcaster, we do it for you. We've booked thousands of interviews for over 800 clients, from funded startups to Fortune 500s. You show up, you tell your story, and spark conversations that drive revenue, investment, and influence. So if you're ready to step onto the biggest stages in your industry, head over to kitcaster.com. We'll get you booked. Apply today. That's Kitcaster by Moburst. Hey everybody, you know what's crazy? I've been sitting on a gold mine this entire time and I didn't even know it. My Gmail inbox, literally thousands of warm contacts who already know and trust me. But here's the problem every founder faces. How do you turn those relationships into revenue without feeling like a sleazy salesperson? That's exactly why I've been using warmstart.ai. And honestly, it's been a game changer for my business. This AI platform connects your email, analyzes all your existing contacts, and helps you identify who in your network might actually be interested in what you're doing. Then it writes personalized outreach messages that don't sound robotic or pushy. The best part, you review every single message before it goes out. No spray and pray nonsense. This is relationship-based selling done right. My listeners know I only recommend tools I actually use, and Warmstart has literally helped me reconnect with people I'd lost touch with and turn those conversations into real business opportunities. If you're a founder struggling with outreach, check out warmstart.ai and use code AIFF to get $50 off your first month. Trust me, your existing network is worth way more than you think. Alfonso, how you doing?
Great. Thank you for inviting me. Just grabbed my third coffee of the day, so pretty energized and excited about the opportunity.
Let's go. I mean, hair looks great. That you can't beat that. Yeah, if a good hair day is worth its weight in gold. Now, I did a deep dive on you coming into this interview. I can't wait to talk about CrossMint. But a couple things really stood out. One, sounds like you're really smart. And then two, you invented the I am not a robot CAPTCHA. Now, being an expert in determining who's a robot and who's not, which you are, perhaps the world's foremost robot expert in that, I have a lot of conversations about AI, and I have been accused of being AI from some of the listeners of this podcast. So I will let you determine, am I a robot?
That's a great question. Do you have a checkbox there that you can check?
No.
I wish I had like a traffic light then to confirm, but we're going to have to say 80% human, 20% robot. By the end, I'll see if I update my weights.
Yeah. You know, it's getting kind of dicey, right? The line between who's a robot and who's not a robot is blurring. How long do you think it'll be before you won't be able to tell anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I would say there's already places where we cannot tell, right? One of them that's increasingly getting more and more complicated is just when someone is browsing your website. It's hard to tell. When someone is communicating social media, even images and video generation are starting to get to the point where it's indistinguishable. So I would say within the digital realm, we're probably within a few years of impossibility to distinguish AI generated versus human generated content. And of course, in the physical world, that's going to take longer. But it is, I think, going to be a drastic change for how we think about the internet and eventually how we think about society, trust, and so on, and something that I think we're all gonna have to figure out, or we're gonna wake up to.
Yeah, it's interesting when it comes down to like arts and entertainment because we're getting closer to the point where anybody can make anything at any time. Um, and so what will rise to the top, I think it's probably a net positive as far as like the creative experience because it's democratizing creativity in a way that people that didn't have the resources to create now can, and they have that talent. So you'll see like the very interesting people rise to the surface, but that's all kind of determinant on taste. So figuring out how in arts and entertainment, you could just say that like the people with the best taste will rise to the top. But now, if we're talking about casual conversations, when it's not arts and entertainment, that like we still have to talk to each other in some way. I feel like that's where it's going to get squirrely, and we'll start to have like agents talking to other agents as like a precursor to an actual conversation with a person and an agent, and it's going to get pretty wild. What do you see kind of the short-term future as far as that goes?
Yeah. I would say first is that I think one characteristic of when we approach what's quote unquote called the singularity is that it is almost impossible to predict what will happen and in which order. But I do think on the realm of art, I think what we are seeing and the way I see it is I see tools being replaced by AI. So in some way, watercolors or oil are getting replaced by AI, but still you need as you were saying, a human curator that has taste to actually generate this. I'm not sure taste can be replaced. It is a great philosophical question. I don't know if that's something inherently human or that can be trained or understood by an LLM. What an LLM can do is, given certain instructions, I think follow the instructions of the tastemaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot who said it, but somebody said that the artist of the future will just be a person who recognizes when art happens. They're not necessarily creating things, but rather they're just framing it. It was always interesting because it reminded me of like just if for some reason I had just an image of an old man sitting on a bench and just being like, that's art. That's art. But there will be obviously novel ways that we'll be able to share data with each other and different ways to frame art. And we're kind of getting introduced to it by our language now. I got two teenage kids. So I know all the slang. If you need to know the new Gen Z slang, I probably know it. But one of my favorite is aura. And they talk about everything having aura or not having aura or gaining or losing aura. But when you really press for like, hey, what's the definition of aura? They're just like, dude, just like vibe. You're like, yeah, I do know exactly what you mean. So we're like starting to move to that place where like the need to actually create is not necessarily as valuable as the need to just observe.
Yeah, I agree. And there's another analogy, I think, in the world of programming, but we're starting to see with like Cursor, Devin, and all these tools. A year ago or 2 years ago, everyone was like, maybe engineers are going to get replaced by AI. And what I think the general consensus right now is like engineers are still going to be pretty much needed to first figure out what code to write, but most importantly, to review code. No, like reviewing code is becoming the bottleneck now, and like the highest performant engineering teams. And I think it's probably one that maybe what it means to review will change. You will less need to review if the code is correct, but more, is it right setting the right abstractions or solving the problem needs. But I think that part is going to remain human for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It's awesome. And I want to start to bridge this towards your story because I really want to learn more about CrossMint. There's a bunch there. Now, I did bring it up, and this is a fact that you created the I am not a robot CAPTCHA. Now, is it true that GPT's agent mode actually cracked that code and can click that box and prove that they are not a robot?
Um, let's see. First thing about the story. So a fun fact is that was my side project as an intern at Google. I'm not making this up, but my real intern project was to create a time machine. I couldn't crack that one down, unfortunately, or if I did, I couldn't tell you all. And I just happened to find some engineers that were idle working on the reCAPTCHA team that were like, we need a PM. We need someone to take all these new technologies we have for detecting humans versus agents, and we need to snap a UI and turn this into a product. And that's some of the part that I did. And the interesting thing about this is like, this was what, like 2013, like 12 years ago, we're already starting to see what we're talking about now, which is robots or agents or AI, however you want to call it, was already getting better than humans at one particular task, which was detecting letters and numbers. You guys may remember CAPTCHAs used to be just letters and numbers back in the day.
Yeah, super annoying.
Yeah, and then that was the like. So I think that's one of the first problems that maybe like AI cracked better than humans. But I think everything else just been a continuation of that, and we're gonna see like the same challenge that Google saw 12 years ago of I cannot no longer detect by just reading letters and numbers if someone is human or not. Now it's gonna be extending to a lot of other things, from content generation to browsing and things like this. Yep.
I learned this the other day too. What that CAPTCHA is an acronym. It stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to Tell Computers and Humans Apart, which is kind of hilarious.
Definitely funny that it actually, I don't know what came first, if it was they had a full sentence or they tried to make it.
They try to reverse engineer the the acronym. Yeah. So okay, so let me back up really quick here. Your internship was to create a time machine?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many details I can comment, but basically, that was actually the prompt. I feared I would not get a return offer. I had never done product work before in my life, and so yeah, I was just looking for side projects, and it turned out one of them turned out to be this thing. No, and eventually that's what I've been interested in my career is this battle of identity between humans and robots. Worked on that at Google on other products as well on authentication. Then their first agent SDK 2017 at WhatsApp, fighting fraud and abuse and encryption. And at Crossman, it started also based on this seed, but focused more on how do we detect and how do we reorganize a little bit like the economy around programmatic rails in a way that basically works for humans and agents or AI or whatever we call these entities in the future in an organized manner. But I think lots unpacked there. We'll be unpacking that throughout the rest of the conversation. But
100%.
yeah.
What can you tell me about the time machine?
Let's see. Okay, so I'll tell you a story. I think this one, I've seen it published somewhere. Before I get introduced to actually what the challenge was, my manager told me how Street View came to start. I don't know how much of this is a legend versus a real story, but the legend I was told is this was Sergey or Larry grabbing beers with some people on the Google Maps team one Friday. He just came up with what seemed like a rhetorical question, which is, could we build a teleport machine? And then everyone was like, okay, this guy's already drunk. Like, what's going on here? And then he was like, wait, imagine you're a bird and you have bird view. You see like the earth from the top. You're seeing the same that you can see today in Google Maps. And so as a bird, you could theoretically have the feeling of teleportation if you're looking at a Google Maps screen, and then we switch you to another view. And then he was like, now you're a human, you're not a bird, you're not seeing things from the sky, you're seeing them from the street. What would it take for us to do it? The team started getting excited. They started estimating ways to crack the problem with cars, with planes with 3D cameras, things like this. They ended up estimating they could do it with cars for a few hundred millions a year, drive cars everywhere in the world. And then on Monday, the project got started. So I got told that story. And then my manager was like, well, now we want to build a time machine, figure it out. And basically that was it. There was no more prompt than that. But presumably the solution would entail something, related to Street View, but going back in time and into the future as well.
Interesting. Okay. So it reminds me of there was that what was it? It was a podcast episode where they're talking about Fallujah and they had drones basically videotaping everything from bird's eye view so they could go back in time essentially. So if there was a roadside bomb, they could go back in time in the video and see who planted it and then see where they drove afterward and go back before and see who they were meeting with and then follow all those people. So we think, is it somewhere along those lines, kind of?
You could say so. What I would say is like the reality is we did not build one. So unfortunately, I don't have the solution to the problem. I could tell you my approach, but it's probably not relevant now. But it's a combination of collecting lots of data and then doing a lot of inference to cover the gap with artificial intelligence.
Incredible. Incredible. Which brings us to CrossMint. Give us a quick introduction to CrossMint and really kind of how you got started, because I believe you're the founding member that kind of right on the heels of your career at Google, you really picked up some investment opportunities with folks there and were able to start CrossMint. So kind of walk us into this.
Yeah. So CrossMint, we're a developer platform. So we provide tools and APIs for companies that want to bridge into what we call the programmatic or programmable economy. It's this new economy built entirely on primitives that are programmable through APIs. So you have stable coins, for example, to represent money, wallets to store this money and other digital assets, non-fungible tokens to represent asset ownership. And so they can be used for a myriad of use cases, and I'll go through some of them now. But what we do is, in a nutshell, if a company wants to integrate some of these primitives inside their app, we give them very easy to use hosted tools that abstract out all the complexities of the blockchain and allow you to, for example, deploy something that looks like a bank-like experience in 15 minutes inside your application. I'll cover a couple use cases, but we have a long list of clients that can be checked on our website that have gone, from like Web3 native applications to AI agents now. But the biggest two verticals that we work on today are, one is embedded finance. These are financial institutions, some older than 100 years. Others are up-and-coming startups that want to leverage stable coins for more efficient money movement, like cross-border transfers or payouts, to kind of embedding new kind of financial products very easily inside their products. And again, this the stable coins, I'll talk more later about this if you wish, but are basically making it super easy to deploy bank-like infrastructure in a question of minutes, which is something that took months before. So that's one of our verticals, with these embedded finance use cases. The other one, this is more up and coming, but it's the one we were talking about earlier, which is agentic finance. It's when you start having these new entities, call them agents, AI, or however you like. At now, we're using agents mostly for retrieving information, doing research, maybe coding. But in the future, we're going to want to have these agents actually become financial actors. They may need to buy things on our behalf. Potentially one day they'll be making their own money. They will be paying each other. And we're trying to deploy the rails that allow these agents to do this. And we have APIs there. The same APIs that are used for stablecoin use cases work for agents as well. There's wallets for them to hold money. There's on and off ramps, so they can use their customers' Visa or MasterCard with this new thing called agentic tokens, and just making sure that everything works in a secure and compliant way. That was a mouthful, sorry. If you like, we can dig into some of these use cases later, but that's what CrossMint does.
Now, you and I know startups aren't built in boardrooms. They're built in the wild, during 3 a.m. bug fixes, botched launches, and that one meeting where everything almost fell apart. That's what Code Story is all about. It's a podcast where tech founders break down the make or break moments behind their products, what went wrong, what went right, and what nearly wrecked everything. Hosted by Noah Labhart, Code Story goes past the highlight reel and into the honest stuff. Late pivots, brutal bugs, and somehow coming out alive with a product people actually love. If you're in the build stage, or the scale stage, or the please let this feature work stage, I can relate. This show will speak to your soul. Listen to Code Story at codestory.co or wherever you get your podcast. Just search Code Story, it'll be right at the top. Because great startups aren't born, they're forged, one hard moment at a time. codestory.co. This episode is brought to you by MoBurst. the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. Moburst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product market fit or ready to accelerate growth, Moburst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At Moburst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, Moburst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together.
Now, how do we get started? Do you want me to jump into that?
Yeah, please. I love the use cases. Let's start with the top, the first one you mentioned, and we'll get to the agentic. And I want to frame it like this. I love crypto. Crypto's great. It seems like there's a lot more use cases for blockchain than crypto, largely because I'm still paying 2.9% plus 30 cents on merchant service fees across the board, and I can't figure out why. Like, if we have the infrastructure on the chain, then why do I still have to pay this 3% merchant service across the board? Now, is the application here for kind of the wallet infrastructure and being able to have bank-like transactions on website, is this paving the way to basically get rid of or dramatically reduce that kind of merchant service processing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say two things. One, fees are most certainly going down with crypto and stablecoins. We're seeing this already in cross-border transfers, and I think in the future we will see it on payments, even like nationally. Let's say when you go pay against a merchant. At the same time, though, sometimes I think people imagine, okay, the 3% is going to disappear completely when you use crypto. The reality is that 3% has a lot of different components, and some of those components don't go away with crypto. Like, for example, when you pay with a credit card, you have the protection from your bank that you can do a chargeback, for instance, no? Or there's also protections that the acquirer, the issuer, needs to impose as well. And like, these things don't come inherently by stable coins. If you want to pay and still have the ability to charge back or things like this, potentially credit card networks, potentially new protocols will emerge, and they will still take a fee for some kind of like buyer protection or insurance. So that won't go away necessarily. However, a lot of the intermediaries and things like that do disappear, so the fees will go down. But I want to say it's not going to go down to zero, or if it does go down to zero, you lose some of the protections and functionality. Points is the other one that you're getting today. No, so it's important to set expectations accordingly, that fees will go down. But the biggest use cases for these new technologies, for stablecoins and such, are not only fee reduction, it's more the programmability aspect. And the idea that you can launch financial products, you can launch something like a bank, or you can even like create your own credit card issuance program in a matter of minutes or days instead of months. That is what I see as the true unblock from these technologies.
Incredible. It's cool. So I understand that, like, you can't get rid of fees entirely, but 3 points seems bananas, doesn't it? It's like how it got tied into the gross processing is pretty crazy. I mean, I get it because it's a major revenue generator, but I really would love to see, a blockchain solution that can compete with that in a major way, largely just because writing that check every week or every month drives me absolutely crazy. But I see your point. Of course, you're going to have some kind of insurances and protections, and also the ability to stand up what, bank, which would take banking systems, and you can just stand them up with Crossmint seems completely amazing. The agentic solution, one of the things that stood out is you said you're going to have agents that are working for you and need to buy things from each other is very interesting. I would love to hear your vision of that. And maybe to lead into that, what do you call a what are you going to call a group of agents? What is that collectively? If it's a murder of crows, what do you call a group of AI agents?
Yeah. I'm not the best at naming, but I've seen people call them swarms.
Swarms.
Sounds a
That's
bit
what I heard too.
dystopian, but but let's say for the rest of this conversation, let's use the word swarm and let the broader society figure out if that's the right name or not. As for so use cases, or why are we working on enabling agents? Why do they need these new technologies? Um, you first got to start with the use cases, no? The idea, this is still abstract, but in the same way that we're seeing, for example, in coding, that developers are changing how they write code to before writing code meant think about the problem, then actually like think about how to translate that to the coding language, type it down, and then finally test and verify that everything works. What we're doing is replacing those two middle steps. So people still have to think about the problem, how to solve it. They don't need to maybe necessarily think about how to translate it into JavaScript, and they don't need to think as much into like actually typing it, but they also need to verify. We're moving, like coding is moving to basically what is called like an intent-based. The humans focus on intent and verification, and the actual execution is done by an agent. The same thing is done with research. If you use ChatGPT research, things like this, there's many activities that where if the human starts operating at just the intent layer, they just express, I want this thing done, and then verification later, many activities get stopped with a paywall. The most obvious one is if you want an agent to, let's say, buy your groceries or buy, I don't know, the best shoes for hiking. Let's talk about this use case. Let's say you want, you're going to a hiking excursion next weekend. You need some shoes that are delivered to you in the next 2 days. You have a budget of up to $150, and the specific hike you're doing is in, I don't know, Rocky Mountain. Getting the right shoes here, it requires a lot of steps. You have to go browse a lot of different websites, understand their shipping and things like this, and then finally you actually need to send them money and pay. We do think that all of this, and we're starting to see the beginning of this, all this commerce will probably be intermediated by agents that help pick the right one for you, and then ultimately they handle all the payment. The problem is today, there's a way for an agent to research, but there's no way for the agent to make the payment itself. You could naively just give your credit card to an agent, but then what happens? There's a lot of, like the risk model that credit cards have today blows up. What if ChatGPT, you tell it you want shoes for hiking and understands shoes for dancing or something, and it buys you some ballet shoes? Who's taking the blame here? Is it the credit card holder? Is it the company that's going to get the chargeback? Is it OpenAI that screwed it up? The entire system doesn't work, and as a result, basically Visa, Mastercard, and others are basically saying we're not authorizing this use case. So it's one of the things that needs to get rethought. This is on the agentic commerce side. There's even more futuristic use cases where agents will need payments. There's this thing coming up, like it's growing, gathering a lot of interest the last few months, which is X402. Today we saw an announcement from Cloudflare and Coinbase together, which is payments for accessing any website or any API in the internet. So this one is a bit harder to wrap your head around it, but it's going to be big in the next few months. So I'm going to explain a little bit. As we were talking about at the beginning, detecting whether someone that's using the internet is an agent or a human is becoming much harder. And this is very problematic. Before, what would happen is someone can troll your post on Reddit or things like this. But now we're going to start seeing is you want to spam your competitor, they'll get 300 inbound emails that'll look real, but they're going to waste their time because it's developed by another person. Or you'll get your DMs blowed up on Twitter. Or You're gonna get like anything that you see today is free in the internet. Your Calendly link completely spam. All these things are going to start happening. The moment there's an incentive to abuse, it's going to get abused. And the only way to compensate it, and I tell you guys because I've been working on this for 12 years, is not going to be to try to detect these agents, is that we're going to have to start to think about the economics of these things. Like maybe setting a calendar, uh, invite in my Calendly is going to have to cost $1. Or sending me a DM is going to have to cost 5, or things like this. And how is that actually going to work? This is going to require some kind of micropayment solution that agents can use, that an agent on your behalf, your browser agent, maybe Comet browser in Perplexity or ChatGPT, is going to know Alfonso really values like reading this website, or really wants to send a DM to this other person. For them, it's worth up to 50 cents. So whenever they say, I want to write a DM, they're going to handle payment and pay 50 cents from me. Well, we need tools to make that happen. And again, please take a look at the announcements from Cloudflare and Coinbase, because this is happening faster than we think. No? And there's going to be more and more future. Like, I think in the future, we're going to see agents that make their own money and things like this. Once again, they don't have any tools to do this. They don't have bank accounts. They don't have credit cards. They don't have anything. And this is the part that we're very excited about, but it's also more early, I would say. I'm sorry, I get excited, carried away, and I talked about a lot there, but let me know if you want me to dig into any of those topics.
It's great. It's amazing. So, it's like you're taking away the friction so that you don't have to do all the passwords and everything, so that when we're creating all these like micropayments, Crossment's going to enable it so you could use a stable coin, so you're not necessarily like speculating on crypto. Rather, it's just straight up payments. You know what it reminds me of? The mafia. And the reason is I just rewatched The Sopranos. And one thing I noticed is they're always handing each other envelopes. Everyone's paying up to Tony, because he's the boss. But then if something happens to, Paulie's garage burned down, oh, here you go. He's handing him an envelope. They're always like exchanging money for everything. Or you look at Goodfellas when he's going in there, he's tipping everybody $100. So what you're saying is basically what maybe the mafia has always known, that you pay tribute, literally, you pay attention, and in that case, you're using cash. But this is going to be very similar, because if the exposure for everything just being free, and you can just easily create agents to like spam everybody across the planet, it doesn't scale if it costs $1, to your point. So maybe we're going back to this old world kind of vibe where you're like just throwing $100 around everywhere. And what you don't want to have to do is go to the bank and get $100 every time. Rather, you just always want an envelope sitting metaphorically in your browser, and it can just pay for all these little micropayments and get paid for all these little micropayments, kind of like its own little reserve, right?
Yeah, exactly. I never heard that analogy, but I actually love it. I'm going to use it moving forward. Well, the one part that you mentioned that's important is, okay, you don't want to go to the bank or, authorize with your credit card every single time you're doing anything on the internet. The second one is you also don't want to think about whether you authorize it or not, but you also don't want to go to a website and lose $500. So I do think that these browsers of the future, whatever tool we use to access all these services, will also need to be agentic, and will need to have your own, we'll need to understand your own preferences and make those micro decisions for you all the time. So need to be thinking, is this worth it for my human owner to pay for this or not? Or maybe some things are negotiable. Am I going to negotiate if the price of this website can go down and so on? I don't know how all of this is exactly going to work, but what I could say is like it's an inevitability. Like we are going to very soon reach the point where nothing in the internet is going to work. Today already you go to Twitter and Reddit, and they're starting to become more like there's more AI slop than not. And it's a matter, there's economic incentives at play. It's a matter of like years, if not months, that this becomes unsustainable and it needs to be completely inverted.
It needs to be completely changed. So you think that's how you do it? You box them out with some kind of payment structure?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get this.
Oh, is that the best way to kind of get rid of the bots, is to like create this kind of micropayment? So if you want to comment on Reddit, it's going to cost you, a quarter of time or something like that.
I think so. And again, I've seen this throughout my career. Another of the hats I've worn in the past is I was the first PM working on fighting automated abuse at WhatsApp, which is the platform that gets more abuse in the planet. Like a project we rolled out reduced, like we made a fix that reduced, I think it was like 30 million people got less spam overnight daily. So the things that impact a lot, like entire countries worth of users. And the way we solve these problems, and I think the approach I brought to the team and that I've learned in other anti-fraud teams in the past is everyone starts thinking detecting or preventing automated abuse is a technical problem. It's like, how do we detect, okay, this pattern or this other pattern that tells if something is malicious or not? But that's not the right approach. The right approach to all these problems, to solve them, is always to do an ROI analysis, to understand who is causing abuse, how are they making money, and how can you change the equation, the cost part of whatever they're doing, like let's say generating posts or things like this, so that they do not make money on every single time they spam. And so imagine the case of WhatsApp, right? There's someone making a campaign of 10 million spam messages a day, and maybe they're making $10,000 because 1 in 1,000 click and, I don't know, lose $1. There's a very easy way to make the problem go away, which is, well, it's not easy, but imagine it from an abstract point of view, is if every message you send costs 1 cent, obviously WhatsApp wouldn't do, but imagine you roll this out, then suddenly you have, for 10 million users, it's 100,000 on the cost side, and then you make 10,000, you go bankrupt. And that's ultimately the playbook that the top anti-fraud teams always play, is look at problems from an economic point of view. And the problem is we haven't had the tool of, okay, now if I start charging for these things, how are real legit customers going to pay? But that's the part that's getting unblocked in the last few months, is on one hand, the micropayment side, that's probably going to use stablecoins and blockchain. And number two is the AI agent that actually makes the financial decisions on your behalf of when to pay money or not, your financial advisor or your micropayment manager, that again, LLMs are enabling. No?
It's really cool, because if Web 2.0 was really that the audience is the product, your Metas and everybody else, Google's, are basically paying for the data that they have on the user. Well, if it goes to this micropayment, then actually the person, me, I could get paid for my own attention, essentially, right? So I have my agent swarms that knows what I like, knows what I don't, is out there bartering with brands, so that like they're basically getting the best bang for my buck. So if somebody's selling me black sweatpants, they're like, oh, we know Ryan wants that, but like he's willing to charge 15 cents for his attention. Right now we're coming into the fall. We're going to make sure he needs the best advertisement for black sweatpants. It comes in and now I'm being advertised to, but they're paying for that privilege, right? Something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's probably what we're going to see, maybe starting with other simpler use cases, but that's towards where things are moving.
Incredible. That seems, well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say there's an interesting project in crypto, and it's very maybe on the Web3 degen side, but some part or evolution of it may become mainstream, which is, I think it's called time.fun. And it's a project where you can buy other people's tokenized time. So let's say, Ryan, you have a token associated with you, and people can bid to buy minutes of your time. Again, today this is used maybe more for speculation and so on. But it's ultimately what it's doing is creating like capital markets around the time in your calendar. And I think it's a good project to watch. And in general, I think the analogy of like creating on the fly markets for all of these scarce resources, it's going to exist. And I think the key is how do we make everything transparent and happen in the background as a backend technology, so that people just have a regular browsing experience. But all these things are happening in the background, negotiated by agents running on blockchain rails or whatever it is.
I love it. I love it because, I probably am rare, but I like advertising. Like when it's something that I really want, like if there was a way I could filter everything out, but when like some kind of Pharoah Sanders vinyl record from Japan is available and it would let me know immediately, I would love that. I would stop everything that I had and would buy it right then. So it creates a lot of opportunity. Now, this seems like something that is destined to happen, whether it's, like you said, months or years away. What puts CrossMint as kind of the best position to bring this forward into the market?
Thank you for asking. The first thing I would say is should be our customers who judge if we are the best or not for them. Um, where the positioning we have and where we're focused is we do have a strong view that like blockchain, stable coins, wallets, these technologies are going to be the backend infrastructure for this new hyper financialized world that's going to be needed for all this to happen. But we think these things are backend technologies. This is not something that a human needs to see or observe. And second, these are also things that are very complicated for the businesses that will need to deploy it. It's also something that as a business owner, you will need someone to take care of for you. Like suddenly someone that's running a medical office and gets appointments doesn't need to learn how blockchain works in order for them to not get spammed, right? And so our approach is we have tools and APIs that are one, make all of the blockchain parts completely invisible to users. So there's no weird like passphrases that you may have seen with crypto wallets or gas fees or even mention of blockchains or things like this. It's just you may see dollar balance and things like this. And second and most importantly, we're B2B or B2B2C, but we rely on companies integrating our products. We don't build the experiences ourselves. And what we do is like all our tools just assume zero blockchain knowledge by our developers. If you're a blockchain developer, you can use CrossMint. However, if you're not one, that's where we are like especially suited. You don't need to understand what chain you want to use. You don't need to understand gas fees, transactions, things like this. You just need to know how to call a JavaScript or REST-based API to say create a wallet, fund it, move money around. We abstract out the complexity, the legal regulations that keep changing, and every month in every country, we abstract out all the security aspects. You need to worry about having a chief security officer to handle all of that stuff and so on. You just call APIs and you can get up and running in 15 minutes.
Amazing. You have to call me once it comes down to, I can just be like, I want to give an envelope to everybody with a stack of Benjamins, and then I can go in there and develop the vibe coding on CrossMint.
Well, make
Okay.
sure you got an example of that. The mafia board that it's handling stablecoins leaves to every other agent they interact with.
I saw, I was reading, I don't know if this is true or not, but it looks like your revenue was up 1,000% in 2024. Is that right?
I'm not sure if we're authorized to talk if that's a public number, but things have been growing definitely quite a lot recently. I think some of these crazy things that I'm saying here now are not as crazy to some of the people in the audience. Stablecoins are becoming hot. Every fintech company has a stablecoin strategy. And the stuff I'm talking about, AI agents, is still early, but I think next year, every company will be thinking about that as well. And yeah, we're just happen to be positioned at the right time with the right product. But things are still early. Very small percentage of the world is running on stable coins today, although it seems to be doubling every few months.
I don't want to get partisan at all, but part of the conversation for crypto and blockchain right now is the Trump administration and David Sachs and what they've done to basically raise awareness and really co-sign blockchain and crypto in general. Maybe you could give us, something good that's come out of that, and maybe also something that you would, if you had an ask for them of something that they could do to improve kind of the position for crypto and blockchain.
Yeah. No, I think one thing they've done that's good is they've given a lot of regulatory clarity. So Genius Act, for example, legalizes stable coins. And, I think the imposition of the SEC and things like that are just like giving a lot of like clarity to companies that were looking into integrating these technologies because they wanted to. They just didn't know if they're going to, be walking in muddy waters. On things that I would ask, I think one thing that probably the world needs is the ability to make it easier to make investment on things without that part being overly regulated. So a company being able to issue some of their equity on chain and things like that, all of that part being easier, that couldn't block a lot of value. And because that's not regulated and it's also muddy waters, people are creating all these like super scammy, like meme coins and things like that, that sometimes are, they're much worse than actually being able to invest on a legitimate company or enterprise. And instead, people are just, I don't know, like investing on memes. No, so there's definitely a desire to invest on things. Sometimes people invest on memes that look related to a company because they cannot invest in the company itself. I think I don't think they should allow anyone to just launch a token crazily and let investors take the hit. But I do think we need to make a much easier framework for that to happen. I think they're working on it, and just exciting to see where that goes.
Amazing. So we're going to enter the lightning round. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So the audience of this show is almost exclusively founders. Many of them are have raised or venture backed. Perhaps they're considering, introducing crypto and blockchain into their product stack. Maybe if not for anything else, but for payment. When should they reach out to CrossMint to see if how CrossMint can benefit your services and products can benefit their company?
If it's someone in fintech, they should reach out today. We're not a company that just gives you APIs. We also have a customer success engineer team, solutions architects that can help you walk through the problem. If you're not in fintech, the moment you have a clear thesis on why you want to use wallets, stable coins, or things like this, if you're in agents, maybe in like 3 months, reach out as well.
Okay. Amazing. Now, another thing that I think kind of threads the audience of this podcast together is they all love ideas. So you're an ideas guy. Do you have an idea in your back pocket? If someone who wants to go as fast as they can to $1 million in revenue, what product should they start building today?
I have one. It's a bit long to explain, but maybe I'll put it in very common terms. Um, I find it very hard to keep habits. I'm a busy man. Maybe many of you are as well. But one thing I found, like for example, going to the gym every day. One thing I found is with my friends and other founders, we have a support group where for 3 months, for example, we do a challenge of post a TikTok every day, and we all do it. And the reason we keep it is the moment one doesn't do it, they lose $1,000. They need to pay to the rest of the group. Okay, and it's tremendously effective. No one wants to lose $1,000 for skipping a day. I believe that this can be very easily extended using, again, stablecoin wallets, trusted execution enclaves, or smart contracts to automatically check your Fitbit and be like, did you go to the gym today? No? Okay, I'm taking $1,000 from your wallet and burning it or donating it. This can be programmed today. There's a lot of very valuable use cases. There's also a Black Mirror dystopian use cases of it as well. But I think something that would be very powerful, and at least myself, I would definitely use. So programmable habits by checking APIs and automatically making you lose your money if you don't meet them. I think that would
Love
be
it.
very useful.
It's amazing. Do you think you're more motivated by the stick or the carrot?
For me, the carrot.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the habits? No, definitely the stick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're burning it, right? Or if it's your buddy and you have to see him taking a picture with his stablecoin wallet that's up $1,000, you'd be pretty pissed.
Mhm.
I love it. Amazing. Okay. Um, Everything's moving very quickly. You're at the tip of the spear of agentic AI, blockchain. We have robots right around the corner, if not here already. And we have maybe the promise of quantum computing. If you're looking 10 years into the future a little bit, how does it look in your mind's eye?
I think 10 years in the future, we're definitely past the singularity, I think. So it's hard to say. But I mean, the optimistic view on me is we didn't talk much about this, but we solved all these problems about distinguishing or organizing agents and humans. I think we'll need not only crypto, but cryptography in general to be able to understand, what content is real and many things like this, authorization and so on. And we're living a synergetic society where humans are still ruling. They express intents and their agents do most of the busy work for them. But humans are tastemakers, as you were saying. They're kind of vibe working everything. that you're just conjuring things into existence and agents doing the work. I think we can make this work. And obviously the negative or the pessimistic outcome is a much more, I think sadder than that one, but I think as society, we're going to figure it out.
I agree. Fonzo, this has been absolutely great. I really appreciate your time. Where can people find you online?
Well, I'm always online. I think Twitter is probably the best one. If you search for Alfonso Crossman, you'll find it, or Alfon GJ, Alfon G as in Gomez, J as Jordana, my last two names. And I have my DMs open. Feel free to DM me and ask more questions, and always happy to chat.
Incredible. And that's crossmint.com, where you can find Crossmint, of course. Congratulations to your success, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for your time.
Hey, founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out aiforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI to grow your startup. Each week, AI for Founders drops a sharp, no-fluff newsletter, dives deep with expert guests on the podcast, and hosts monthly workshops where you can get your hands dirty with the real tools and strategies. Whether you're pre-seed or Series B and beyond, launching something new, or just staying sharp, AI for Founders gives you the edge you need to win in 2025 and beyond. Hit aiforfounders.co to subscribe to the newsletter, tune into the podcast, and grab your spot in the next workshop. And it's all free. Build smarter, move faster, think bolder with AI for Founders. Now back to the show.